Welcome back to your Pig Channel show. Will Monclair alongside Kevin McPherson for your Hog Hoops report. Kevin, the season is over. It was a long ride. It was a good ride, and it has come to an end there in the Sweet 16 with UConn. Tough game to watch. 20-point difference between the two of them. What did we take away from that last game?
Well, the way UConn's marching through this NCAA tournament, now punching its ticket last night over the 3-seed Gonzaga by 28 points. Arkansas loses by 23. By the way, that was the fourth largest margin Arkansas's ever lost by in an NCAA tournament. Arkansas's 50 and 35 all time, so 85 games in. You don't want to get beat like that, but at the same time, UConn's destroying everybody in this field. If there's any consolation there, I think the other thing is this was a team when you look at the beginning of the season, arguably the top ranked recruiting class in the country. Yes, 11 newcomers, but you had that recruiting class. You had guys like Devo Davis and Kamani Johnson who'd experienced back-to-back Final Fours. You've got Eric Musselman in your camp. You had 5 stars coming in. You had a national top 10 preseason ranking. This season did not go as planned. You had injury issues. It's well documented. Trevor Brazile lost after 8 games. Nick Smith Jr. ends up playing 17 games, missed 19 games, missed 2 months in the middle of the season and through most of league play. So this was a sketchy run for the Arkansas Razorbacks when you looked at expectations. But everybody says that one of the favorite things around is you pay attention to what teams do in postseason. That matters more than anything. If that's the case, this Arkansas team, I think, not only save face, but continue to move the program in the right direction. Get into that second weekend, get into that Sweet 16. That's back to back to back, 3 consecutive seasons of getting to the Sweet 16. That's only happened one other time in program history. That 4-year run under Nolan Richardson in the late 80s, really the early 90s to the mid 90s. They went to 4 consecutive Sweet 16s, and 2 of those were bookends for back-to-back national title game runs. We know the Hogs won the championship in 93-94. So Arkansas continues to make history, knocking off the 1 seed and the defending national champion in the NCAA tournament, Kansas. Arkansas only done that once before in terms of knocking off a defending champion. You have to go back to the early 80s. U.S. Reed's half-court heave, the miracle, to knock off Louisville, the defending national champions. So Arkansas made some history in this tournament. I kept saying this was a tournament with no great teams. UConn looks great. All the 1 seeds are gone. Not one of the 1 seeds is advanced, to the point of even being in the Elite 8, let alone a Final Four. So this is a field with not great teams. UConn looks great right now. Maybe that's prohibitive favorite, but if you look at Arkansas coming off those back-to-back Elite 8s before this season, those teams really, in my opinion, when I kind of peel it back, had more depth of experience. And although this team had maybe more versatility and size and length and more bodies on the front line, once Trevor Brazile was down, once Nick Smith missed 19 games, Arkansas was really losing, for the most part, a lot of 3-level scoring. We saw the same things kind of dog this team all year. Inconsistency with the turnovers, with rebounding, free throw shooting, lapses on defense. That's where Arkansas hangs its hat, the previous 2 Elite 8 run teams. But anytime you advance to the second weekend 3 years in a row in the NCAA tournament, you're not only nationally relevant, but you're in the conversation as one of the top teams. I mean, this is an Arkansas team. I mentioned the top 10 rankings coming in. Arkansas has been out of the poll since January when they took that initial dive in SEC play. But this is a team now, the AP poll's already done its work prior to the tournament. Arkansas is not going to be ranked in the AP. But the coaches poll, the USA Today coaches poll, they'll do their poll at the end after every game's played. And we'll see if Arkansas ends up in the rankings. As a Sweet 16 team, you might think they've got a chance for that, which would mean national final rankings 3 years in a row as well. So I kind of quickly ran through everything. I've just put out an article, top players, in my opinion, for the Hog this year. There were several guys that contributed. When you looked at Arkansas finishing 10th in the SEC, you look at Arkansas being underwater in league play by 2 games, 8 and 10. You still had 3 players make the all-league team. So Anthony Black, the freshman guard who we expect to declare any time now for the NBA draft, he's projected as a lottery pick. I thought he was the team's MVP. The 6'7" guard, he did a little bit of everything, scored the ball, rebounded, assisted, stole the ball, blocked shots, and had his share of really big games to help Arkansas this year, especially when the nation really got a glimpse of him back in Maui in that 3rd-place finish run against teams like Creighton and San Diego State. We see what they've done in this tournament so far. So that was an excellent run way back in November. Anthony Black, big part of that. Ricky Council IV, I thought was the best offensive player for this team, with leading scorer, one of the top 5 scorers in the league. And he turned it on in the NCAA tournament after having kind of a bad 4-game stretch in the end of the regular season in the SEC tournament. I've got Devo Davis, who made the all-defensive team. The 2 names I just mentioned were all second-team all-SEC. Of course, Anthony Black making the all-freshman team, but Devo Davis made the all-defensive team in the league. And I thought he was Arkansas's postseason MVP. What an unforgettable performance against Kansas, 25 points, 21 in the second half. And we saw his heroics both in the SEC tournament and in the NCAA tournament. Other things he was doing to help Arkansas win games, as Arkansas did manage to go 3-5 in the postseason when you patch together the SEC tournament in the NCAA tournament. But Arkansas, so there's some history made with some of the things Arkansas did in the NCAA tournament, Will, and the fact that you advanced that far, I think we have to call the season a success relative to the injury problems I mentioned and the fact that when you turn over your roster, this is Eric Musman's choice, 11 newcomers, and some of your key ingredients are missing. I think Arkansas, ends up showing well on the season when you factor in the postseason. Now, look, this team was really only blown out twice. Tennessee late in the year, and then UConn. 22-14 was the record. That doesn't look great, but Arkansas was so close in so many games. I know fans aren't going to want to accept that as consolation, but the team was, probably really close to maybe having a better seed and a different path in this NCAA tournament. I think the West region was the toughest. I think UConn's going to probably end up proving to be the best team in the whole field this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely, Kev. Now, there's so many questions about what this team's going to look like next year. What familiar faces do you think we will see, and where do you think this team goes roster-wise?
Well, since Musselman's been here in 4 seasons, at least half the roster has been turned over. Last year, I just mentioned it, 11 out of 13, so almost brand spanking new team. So I think everything's on the table. You've got multiple guys with NBA draft and going to enter in, even if they don't know if they're going to hire an agent right away. I think 2 of the guys for sure are going to be, once they announce they're not coming back, Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, and I think there may be 1 or 2 more with a ceiling of 5. I think that's an awkward path to get to 5, but it's possible when I start talking about Ricky Council, Jordan Walsh, and Trevin Brazile. So you asked me who's coming back, and I think the transfer portal, Musselman and his staff do a great job of identifying what they want out of it and helping players who they don't factor in the long-term plans for this program and helping them find a landing spot. So I think there's a lot of stuff on the table. The one guy, Devo Davis, whose name I haven't mentioned in terms of the draft, been around for 3 years, and he's a guy that might test the draft waters and see what else is available to him in professional basketball while he also considers a return. If Arkansas could get him back, and if they can somehow get back 2 of the 3 out of Jordan Walsh, Trevin Brazile, and Ricky Council, and then some other guys, like a Joseph Pinion, who intrigued me this year with his 3-point shooting for a team that was not very good behind the 3-point line. And he helped Arkansas win a couple of conference games. In a conference run where they went 8-10, it could have been worse if not for him. So there's pieces in the program, guys like Barry Dunning, Darian Ford, and then we've got the Mitchell twins and Jalen Graham up front. I do think Eric Musselman. Now we're going to talk about the portal because Arkansas has not only been reaching out to over 50, but they're going to go see a player in Houston tomorrow, 6'2" guard, and this young man Quincy Olivari, a senior grad at Rice. And he's a guy that averaged nearly 18.7 points a game last year at 6'2", 5.9 rebounds, a little over 2 assists, a steal per game. But what you like about him, he's a volume 3-point shooter. In 4 years, he made over 250 threes at Rice, shooting at nearly a 38% clip. So it's efficiency and volume. I mentioned he averaged nearly 19 points a game. This is the kind of guy, when you look at him statistically, might give you a little bit of a feel of the kind of value that a J.D. Notae brought when Musselman pulled him out of the portal in his first year at Arkansas. Not saying they're the same kind of player, but a volume scorer and a guy that's going to put up threes. Now, this guy's a little more efficient than J.D. was, so I'm not saying he's the same kind of player, but there might be some similar value there. Arkansas's also had an unofficial visitor earlier in the week out of the transfer portal, UCA, right here in Central Arkansas, University of Central Arkansas, and a local guy out of Bryant here in the Central Arkansas area. So he He played high school basketball at Bryant. He was former teammates in high school with former Razorback KK Robinson, but he took that unofficial visit. He's already on Monday, and he told me he loved everything about it. He really sees a fit for himself in this system. He also did an in-home. He hosted Butler was in, and so those two teams, Arkansas and Butler, in his Final Five that he released a little bit after those visits, the in-home and his on-campus visit to Arkansas. But you've got Arkansas, Butler, Missouri, Loyola, Chicago, and St. Louis in his Final Five. He told me he's about a couple of weeks out maybe from making a decision. And then another in-stater, Freddie Hicks, that's played the last 3 years at Tarleton State, a Division I in Texas. It's in the WAC conference. He was WAC Freshman of the Year 2 years ago, averaged 16 points a game, a 6'5", 6'6". This guy's an explosive athletic wing, good length. But, I mentioned the 16 points a game. He can rebound from that wing spot. But he's been talking to Eric Melsman and at least 3 or 4 of the other assistants. And they're still talking about setting up a visit for him, to come up to Fayetteville or perhaps an in-home. Now, he's in Texas. I mentioned Arkansas coaches going into Houston tomorrow to see the Rice transfer. So we'll see if they coordinate any other visits. The Final Four is being played there, but also the McDonald's All-American game is Tuesday. 2023 5-star Arkansas Sonny Bay Fall arrived on Friday to go through all the events that lead up to the actual game on Tuesday, but he's also been selected to the world team in the upcoming Nike Hoop Summit in early April. Nick Smith Jr. participated in that game last year. It's a big deal. It's a Nike-sponsored event, fitting the best from the U.S., from some of the best players from around the world, many of which are already playing over here. But Bay Fall, the 6'11" forward center out of Denver, the 5-star, will not only take part in the McDonald's game on Tuesday, but he will be playing in the Nike Hoop Summit early, about a week or so later.
Kev, no, I know the season has just wrapped up, but this is probably a question that's on a lot of Arkansas fans' minds right now. When do you think we're going to start hearing news of who's leaving and who's staying?
Right. So I went through a little bit of the names and what they might do, but when is a big question, especially when you've already started recruiting players out of the portal. So I really think, it could be as soon as this week, the first week between, with the coaches, out on the recruiting trail, going to be at the Final Four. We'll see if there's any movement this week. I think it could be that soon. It may be after. They have their end of season meetings with players individually and as a team. And a lot of times those things start to shake out after they've done some of that. But I think any day, I think within the next 24 hours to possibly a week. But once you start recruiting like Arkansas does in the portal, we know they signed 2 in the high school ranks. This is the team that only had 1 player, Kamani Johnson, that was leaving because he was out of college eligibility. So you had 12 more technically still on scholarship. So those things got to have to sort out. And you're right, as you recruit, you're also guys are making decisions and moving on, whether it's trying to test those pro waters. Do they leave the door open to come back? I think some won't. I think some are automatically out because of their draft projections when we talk about Smith and Black. But others, so there's a lot of, kind of juggling. And Eric Melsman and his staff have always had to, kind of play whack-a-mole with it as things happen and develop. But they also do a great job of planning. So it's less that and more about, kind of playing the game out in terms of who's available, who's interested in Arkansas, what are the current players thinking, what are some of their needs. If Arkansas can help them get playing time somewhere else, if they're not part of the plans, they're going to do that. Melsman and his staff don't stand in the way of transfers getting immediate eligibility. So there's all kinds of stuff going through this process. And I think Arkansas staff has always been among the best equipped to do it. And the results on the court are evidence of that. I think, when we talk about what Arkansas has done the last 3 years, which we did earlier, it speaks to the recruiting success and how they handle it.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. It'll be interesting to see the way all of this shakes out. And as always, we appreciate having you on. We're going to head to break. More Pig Trail after this.